Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we unpack your sources to find those nuggets of wisdom that truly make you well informed. Today, we're diving into a really fascinating collection of articles, research, insights you've brought us. Now, you might have come in expecting maybe a deep dive solely into Patrick Lencioni's The Five Dysfunctions of a Team, given the title we're exploring. And yes, we absolutely will delve into how that absence of trust, leads to a fear of conflict and how that cascades down into lack of commitment, avoiding accountability, and ultimately that inattention to results
Yeah.
because our sources, they touch directly on those critical elements, team discipline, performance, absolutely. But the broader material you've provided, well, it paints an even richer, really multifaceted picture of what makes organizations truly effective.
Exactly. That's what's so compelling here. While we're using Lencioni's model, that pyramid as a powerful lens, the core themes, organizational health, peak performance, they resonate through all the diverse material we have. We'll be connecting those dots, drawing insights from, well, everything. Silicon Valley startups, established corporate wisdom, even historical military strategies. Our mission today is really to give you a comprehensive diagnostic toolkit, something you can use to understand and improve any organization or team you're part of. Get ready for some genuine aha moments because we're about to uncover principles that apply whether you're grappling with team dynamics, refining strategy, or, just trying to foster a culture of innovation.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Let's see what we can learn about making things truly work, whether you're building a company, a product, or just, a better way to collaborate. Our mission today is to distill the most impactful, actionable insights from this wealth of knowledge. And we'll keep that Lencioni framework in mind as we explore the wider landscape. Leadership, strategy, human dynamics.
The foundations of organizational health and leadership.
We're starting today right at the bedrock, organizational health, leadership. And it all begins with understanding your core purpose. Peter Drucker, his name is synonymous with management wisdom, right? He reminds us that an institution's primary purpose, its real job, is to perform its specific mission. And this isn't just some internal goal, some abstract idea. He emphasizes it's society's first need and interest. The organization exists to do something specific for the world. That function is paramount. But, it seems so obvious, doesn't it? Yet we see so many organizations, well, lose their way. What makes that clarity so difficult to maintain in practice?
That's a brilliant question because it is deceptively simple on paper. Drucker's core point, as you said, is that unless an institution discharges its performance responsibly, meaning it successfully does what it set out to do, it can't truly achieve anything else. Think about it. A bankrupt business, right? It might have had lofty goals, but it can't be a desirable employer. It can't be a good neighbor in the community. It certainly can't create future opportunities if it can't even stay afloat. Its specific function, its very performance, that is its social responsibility. It's not just philosophy. It has really profound, tangible consequences. Take the Ford Edsel, infamous, right, from Business Adventures. Ford's forward planners, they envisioned this car for the newly rich, upwardly mobile citizens racked with longings for more. That was the idea. They poured immense resources into it, a truly monumental effort, product development, marketing, everything. But the car, it just didn't resonate. The market didn't want it. Warnock, their PR man, he famously called it 2 years out of my life that I'll never forget. Said it gave him an ulcer. And the Edsel wasn't just like a marketing flop. It was a profound failure of purpose alignment. Ford thought they knew what people longed for, but they totally misdiagnosed the market's fundamental needs, its desires. So this inability to deliver on their primary mission, create a desirable product for a specific segment, it didn't just hurt sales. It severely damaged their brand, their finances, their capacity to fulfill any broader societal roles. Even employee morale took a hit. The insight here is that purpose isn't just a mission statement on the wall. It's a living, breathing connection to external reality. And it demands constant validation, disciplined execution.
And that's where Drucker's emphasis comes in, constantly asking what needs to be done now and matching your best people with opportunities, not just sticking them on problems. That becomes so crucial. It's about being relentlessly outward focused, almost anticipating where that societal need is shifting instead of just reacting to internal stuff or, resting on past successes. It's a truly forward-looking, strengths-based approach. Keeps that purpose sharp, makes sure your efforts are always aligned with creating genuine value. Okay, moving beyond that foundational mission, let's talk about the people at the top, the leaders themselves. Daniel Goleman's research on emotional intelligence really emphasizes self-awareness and empathy as absolutely critical leadership qualities. It's not just about being technically brilliant or having a sky-high IQ. It's about understanding yourself, understanding others. That deep connection to human behavior seems to be the real differentiator. But is this something you're born with, or can you actually cultivate it? What does Goleman say?
Yeah, that's the fundamental question, isn't it? Are leaders born or made? Goleman addresses it head on. He argues it's both. Sure, there's probably a genetic component, might give some people a natural predisposition, but he stresses that emotional intelligence, it actually increases with age. And crucially, it can absolutely be learned, developed. Think about self-awareness, for example. How does it show up? It manifests as a leader's candor, their realistic self-assessment. A willingness to openly acknowledge their strengths, yes, but more importantly, their weaknesses, their personal biases. Goldman gives this fantastic example. A manager, she was skeptical about a new personal shopper service. Without anyone prompting her, she just openly admitted to her team, to her boss, look, it's hard for me to get behind the rollout of this service because I really wanted to run the project, but I wasn't selected. Bear with me while I deal with that. Now, that was a weakness. That was profound strength. She acknowledged her feelings, processed them transparently, and a week later, fully supporting the project. That level of self-knowledge, that openness, it builds immense trust, psychological safety within a team. And that's something Lencioni would argue is absolutely foundational, right? The base of his pyramid.
That's powerful, really powerful. And empathy, you mentioned empathy, often seen as, well, unbusinesslike, maybe even soft, especially in the cutthroat corporate world. Goleman says it's crucial too. Being able to sense what others are feeling, thinking, put yourself in their shoes. That sounds essential for collaboration, for resolving conflict productively. He also points out something interesting. Leaders who set a high bar for themselves, driven by their own self-awareness, their self-motivation, they tend to do the same for the organization. It creates this kind of contagious drive to surpass goals, builds a team with similar traits. High standards just become the norm.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it highlights that effective leadership isn't solely about, objective results or commanding technical expertise. It's profoundly about fostering an environment, a place where people feel understood, valued, genuinely motivated. It's about being able to, as he says, synthesize diverse information, spot patterns, connect the dots in human behavior, not just in the data, not just in market trends. In fact, if we think about Lencioni's pyramid again, emotional intelligence, especially self-awareness and empathy, it directly supports the base of that pyramid, building trust, enabling healthy, productive conflict. Without a leader who can model those traits, those foundational elements are incredibly difficult to establish. Makes the whole team structure pretty unstable.
Okay, so we have mission, we have leadership with emotional intelligence. Next up, execution. The power of discipline and accountability. Jim Collins, in No Good to Great, he talks about a culture of discipline. Not just disciplined people, but disciplined thought and disciplined action. And when you combine that kind of discipline with entrepreneurship, that's where you get what he calls the magical alchemy of great performance. It sounds potent, but how does this discipline differ from just, rigid bureaucracy, red tape?
That's a really important distinction to make. Collins clarifies. Discipline isn't about hierarchy or excessive bureaucracy in that old school sense. It's about enabling disciplined action from within, so you actually don't need all those excessive external controls. It's more like an internal compass, not an external leash. And this connects really profoundly to Lencioni's model, right? Where discipline and persistence are required to shed those dysfunctions. Lencioni talks about needing discipline and persistence to keep doing what we're doing when you're actively working to overcome those ingrained habits, the ones that lead to dysfunction. It's about a consistent, almost habitual approach to team health. Think about Sam Walton from Made in America. He emphasized controlling expenses and constant innovation right from Walmart's very beginning. He said our money was made by controlling expenses. That, and Sam always being ingenious. That wasn't just a rule. It was a consistent, ingrained, disciplined focus on core operational stuff. It became part of the company's DNA, much more than just following rules.
That's a great example. Discipline is a core value, not just a rule book. Stephen Covey gives us a powerful, practical framework for fostering this accountability. He calls it stewardship delegation. Focuses on results, not methods. With stewardship delegation, you define 5 things up front. Desired results, the what, not the how. Clear guidelines, the quicksand and wild animals, the things to avoid. Resources. Accountability, who answers for what. And consequences, good and bad. It's about empowering people, letting them figure out the how while making sure they understand the boundaries, the ultimate expectations. And that's radically different from traditional go-for delegation, isn't it? Where you just tell someone exactly what to do and how. Stewardship delegation. It demands a much deeper level of trust, shared understanding.
And this raises a key question. How do you actually foster that accountability? Ensure goals are met effectively within that kind of framework. Ken Blanchard's 1-minute goals and 1-minute praisings. They offer wonderfully practical tools. Really simple. The idea is that clear, short goals, like no more than a paragraph or two, takes just a minute to review. You combine that with specific immediate praise for good work. That can significantly strengthen performance, build self-confidence, and for areas needing correction. Instead of punishment, especially for people still learning, you redirect them. Reset clear goals. Make sure they understand what good performance actually looks like. These are crucial practices for building that muscle. Countering that avoidance of accountability dysfunction Lencioni warns about. You make expectations crystal clear. You celebrate progress. You course correct with specific actionable feedback, not judgment. And even Sam Walton, he faced challenges within his own company. When he stepped aside briefly, even though Walmart was showing real good numbers during this whole period, he noted it was never a question of mismanagement. It was more about competition, differing loyalties within the organization. He eventually had to step back in and decide the things that need tiebreakers. It just illustrates how even a disciplined framework, a strong culture, still needs clear, decisive leadership when those internal dynamics test it. It highlights that discipline isn't like a one-and-done solution. It's a continuous practice. Clarifying purpose, setting expectations, reinforcing accountability, even when the founder steps back or the environment gets complex.
Strategic acumen and adapting to change.
All right, let's pivot now. We've talked about the internal health, the foundations. Let's look outward, how organizations operate strategically in the wider world. Our next section is all about strategic acumen, adapting to change, starting with crafting winning strategies in a competitive landscape. Richard Rumelt, in Good Strategy, Bad Strategy, he tells us a good strategy comes from a clear diagnosis of the challenge. Makes sense. He gives this brilliant historical example, Henry Ford. Immense success with the Model T, captured, 62% of the U.S. auto market in 1921? All down to low-price, world-class industrial engineering. But how do you even begin to challenge that kind of dominance? Seems impossible.
That's the million-dollar question, absolutely. And what's fascinating is how General Motors responded. Under Alfred Sloan, he was tasked with studying product policy. At the time, GM had 10 lines of vehicles, many overlapping in price, around $1,800, $2,200. They were basically competing with themselves, while Ford owned that high-volume, low-cost segment, Sloan's genius. He differentiated the offerings across the spectrum of income levels, created this clear ladder for customers to climb: Chevrolet, Pontiac, Oldsmobile, Buick, Cadillac. He wasn't trying to beat Ford at his own game, the singular low-price model, no. He was carving out distinct market segments, giving customers a reason to trade up. This wasn't just about products, it was pioneering a new business model, a concept Hamilton Helmer calls counterpositioning. That's when you create a superior business model that, crucially, would cause collateral damage for incumbents if mimicked. It messes with their existing structure, their profit engine. Ford, for instance, couldn't just easily introduce a diverse product line. It would undermine their entire manufacturing setup, their cost structure, all built around one standard product. Genius, really.
Speaking of competitive advantage, Helmer also outlines what he calls the 7 powers. These are robust ways to sustain superior profits, crucial for any organization looking for a lasting edge. They include branding, where customer affinity goes beyond just objective features. Counterpositioning, like you just mentioned, building that superior model that harms incumbents if they copy it. Switching costs, making it hard or costly for customers to leave. And process power, evolving a new, complex, inimitable process that gives you big advantages over time. These aren't just buzzwords, are they? They feel like deep structural advantages.
Absolutely, they are structural. Let's connect this to the bigger picture. Think about Intel's microprocessor journey, originally designed for a calculator company, Busicom. Intel bought back the rights. That led to the 4004, then the 8008 in '72, and culminating in that breakthrough, the fully 16-bit 8086 in 1978. That was process power in action. It wasn't a single invention. It was an evolution of a complex, inimitable process, offering significant advantages consistently over a long period. They just kept innovating, refining chip manufacturing, creating this formidable lead. Similarly, Xerox. Their early success created such a strong brand that the new verb to Xerox actually started appearing. They had to launch this elaborate campaign to protect their proprietary rights and eventually change their name to Xerox Corporation. It just shows the immense power and, the potential pitfalls of successful branding, creating a competitive moat that goes way beyond just product features. Starbucks is another great example. Howard Schultz described their strategy: to win customers by offering the best coffee and customer service and an inviting atmosphere. Simple, but powerful. They also aim to be first in each market if we could. A clear, focused strategy defied conventional wisdom at the time. And Dan Ariely, the behavioral economist, he notes how Starbucks succeeded by making the whole experience so different. Think about the sizes: short, tall, grande, venti. The fancy name's Cafe Americano. Ariely says customers would not use the prices at Dunkin' Donuts as an anchor, but instead would be open to the new anchor that Starbucks was preparing for us. This ability to reframe the customer's value perception, create a new category of experience. That's a strong strategic move, leverages branding, a unique process. It's about creating a fundamentally different value proposition, redefining a whole playing field.
Okay, building on strategy, innovation, absolutely imperative, right, for long-term success, especially when you're crossing chasms and embracing experimentation. Jeffrey Moore, Crossing the Chasm Classic. He highlights that crucial gap between the early adopters, the visionaries seeking revolutionary change, and the early majority, the pragmatists, seeking incremental, measurable, predictable progress.
It's a huge leap psychologically in the market, and many innovative products just fall into that chasm, fail to make the jump. Expert, what exactly is the chasm? Why is it so perilous?
The chasm is essentially this deep, wide gulf, psychological, market-based, and what's fascinating is the totally distinct mindset between those two groups. Visionaries, often in smaller, agile companies, they're willing to take enormous risks. Bet on unproven tech because they see the revolutionary potential. They'll put up with bugs, incomplete features if the core idea is exciting enough. Pragmatists, typically in larger, more conservative firms, they prioritize safety nets. They manage the risks very closely. They need to see how others, especially their peers, have fared before they'll commit. They want proven solutions, references, reliability, successfully bridging this gap. That's world-class stuff. Documentum, for instance. Under Jeff Miller, they went from $2 million in flat revenues for 3 years, stuck. Then $8 million, then $25 million in an IPO, then $75 million, Miller understood. To win over pragmatists, he couldn't just sell raw tech. He needed to provide complete, proven solutions for a specific, compelling problem. That is a textbook example of world-class chasm crossing, translating visionary tech into a product for the mainstream market.
And this challenge, this adoption challenge, is profoundly echoed in Clayton Christensen's Innovator's Dilemma. Explains why established firms so often fail to adapt to disruptive technologies. These are often simpler, cheaper, maybe more convenient products. Initially perform worse by traditional metrics, but then they improve rapidly. Proposals within established companies to pursue these disruptive things, they generally lose out to proposals to move up market. Why? Because the upmarket stuff promises higher margins, caters to existing customers. It's a systemic bias, isn't it? This natural pull towards what's immediately profitable blinds them to future threats simmering below.
Precisely. Which raises the important question: how can firms overcome these built-in organizational barriers? Discovery-driven experimentation, discussed in strategic flexibility, seems key. It's not just regular R&D. It involves engaging in trial and error learning. That provides information, experience, and resource combinations that are available only to the firm engaged in experimentation because they are experientially acquired. You can't just read about it. Unlike, say, codified analytical procedures, anyone can replicate these discoveries. They're difficult for others to understand, hard to copy, creates a unique, inimitable advantage. Eric Ries, the lean startup, talks about this too. Learning is the essential unit of progress for startups. He recounts how his own early work often turned out to be a waste of time and energy. Ouch. But it led to important insights about customers, helped them learn their initial strategy was flawed. This validated learning, backed by real data, willingness to iterate, helps avoid building features nobody actually wants. It's about moving from just belief, from assumptions to actual data-backed insight, adapting based on reality.
And it's not just about internal processes for innovation, is it? Guy Kawasaki's Art of the Start, he encourages let 100 flowers blossom when it comes to evangelism, letting customers help market your products in unexpected ways. He suggests don't be picky about how evangelists help you. Let them help in any way they can. They will show you ways to market your product that you never would have developed yourself. And no. That really shows innovation isn't always top-down, carefully controlled. It can be dynamic, collaborative, a partnership with your community. It's about leveraging the enthusiasm of those early adopters, right? The Visionaries Moore talks about to help you reach that critical early majority. Okay, our journey into strategic acumen wouldn't be complete without looking at how organizations adapt to market dynamics, manage crucial external relationships, especially suppliers. We see a really clear contrast in the source material. General Motors, their arm's length model, fostering vigorous competition among suppliers, pitting them against each other. Then there's Toyota's partner model, long-term relationships, implicit guarantees. Very different philosophy. Expert, what are the real-world trade-offs here?
That's a deep strategic question, yeah, because both models can deliver results depending on the context. What's fascinating here is, while GM's Dr. Lopez was famously credited with saving, $3 to $4 billion, by aggressively pushing suppliers to cut prices, intense, short-term competition, But the partner model, it seems to result in superior performance because partnering firms share more information and are better at coordinating interdependent tasks. Okay. These long-term partnerships also mean they invest in relation-specific assets, which lower costs, improve quality, and speed product development. Why? Because both sides trust there'll be a future return. They're in it together. So it raises that important question: which model is truly superior in the long run? Short-term cost savings can be tempting, obviously, but the long-term benefits, collaboration, shared R&D investment, deeply integrated supply chains like with Toyota, that suggests a more sustainable advantage. Higher quality, faster innovation. The partner model fosters a collective commitment to results, you could say, not just individual wins.
That makes perfect sense. And this philosophy, it extends beyond suppliers to customers, too. Seth Godin's permission marketing speaks to building trust with customers, gradually increasing the permission level you have with them, making that relationship a more valuable asset over time. It's about moving people along a spectrum, right? From strangers to friends, friends to loyal customers. How? By consistently offering value, respecting their attention. Such a stark contrast to interruption marketing, just shouting at everyone. This is about earning the right to communicate.
Precisely. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it's really about designing your interactions, all of them, to be mutually beneficial, whether it's suppliers or customers. The technological revolution in financial services piece highlights how new fintech companies are doing both competing with and partnering with traditional banks. Suggests adaptable, collaborative relationships are key in evolving markets. It's not always purely adversarial. Consider Amazon in the early days, their Associates program, allowing other websites to earn a commission for referring customers. Genius, a first big innovation. It basically pioneered affiliate marketing, created a multi-billion-dollar industry that was strategic partnership par excellence, extended Amazon's reach massively. But, and here's where the complexity really hits, even Jeff Bezos grew frustrated with some deals, like the one with Toys R Us. Seemed promising at first, right? Ended up in dueling lawsuits. What? Bezos realized these partnerships were, maybe inadvertently, delaying the partner retailer's own digital education. And maybe more critically, they were ceding valuable customer loyalty directly to Amazon. This wasn't just a small hiccup. It highlighted a fundamental misalignment of long-term interests. It powerfully demonstrates that while strategic partnerships offer immense leverage, market extension, they need constant management, transparent communication, unwavering alignment on core objectives. Without that, even initially successful collaborations can unravel. Proves that success often hides these underlying tensions that you really need to address proactively. It's a constant balancing act.
Navigating complex dynamics and human elements.
Now let's dive into the intricate internal workings. Organizations, teams, specifically navigating complex team dynamics, the human elements that so often dictate success or failure. While our sources don't lay out the full Lencioni pyramid in one consolidated text, we definitely see clear glimpses of team challenges and the solutions that align with it. John Katzenbach and Douglas Smith, for instance. They emphasize teaming is a discipline for small group performance. And they state really clearly, only the team can succeed and only the team can fail. That really highlights the need for mutual accountability, right? A common commitment among members, not just individual effort.
It's striking to me how Katzenbach and Smith differentiate between just individual accountability and true team discipline. It's not enough for each person to just hit their own targets. There has to be mutual accountability, a shared ownership of the collective outcomes. And for that to work, you absolutely need constructive candor. They talk about identifying skill gaps, avoiding personalization, really focusing on what's blocking the group's success. This implicitly points straight to the absolute need for trust. You need trust to have those difficult conversations without people getting defensive, fearing reprisal, taking offense. And this ties directly to Lencioni's second dysfunction, doesn't it? The fear of conflict, which can only be overcome if you have that foundation, the absence of, well, the presence of trust. If trust is absent, candor is impossible. Without candor, healthy conflict about ideas just won't happen.
And the limited Lencioni excerpt in our sources actually highlights this perfectly. It mentions a team agreeing with her too easily, and Catherine, the leader, having to rattle them one more time. That immediately suggests a lack of psychological safety, doesn't it? A reluctance to offer honest feedback, engage in critical discussion. That's the antithesis of true candor, signals a fear of conflict. The team was basically avoiding the uncomfortable but necessary debates that lead to better decisions. The excerpt also notes the team rarely discussed the notion of teamwork directly, which Catherine interpreted as a sign that they were making progress, implying that good teamwork, once established, can become so natural, so integrated it doesn't need constant explicit discussion, but only after those foundational issues, trust, healthy conflict, have been addressed. So that was a critical step in building that very foundation.
Which raises an important question. How do leaders manage conflict and frustration within a team to get to that natural state of progress? Daniel Goleman describes a democratic leader. Encouraged everyone to express freely their frustrations and complaints in a team-building offsite. This suggests that allowing for open, even maybe at each other's throats discussion can lead to resolution. Just like Catherine's experience with her team wrestling with business issues to actually work them through, it's about providing a safe container for disagreements, knowing that if you avoid conflict, what you get is artificial harmony, which isn't real progress. Once a team can healthily debate ideas, then they can truly commit to decisions, even if they initially disagreed. That's Lencioni's third dysfunction tackled: lack of commitment. Jocko Willink and Leif Babin from Extreme Ownership, they illustrate leadership as a group effort. They highlight that if subordinates pick up the slack for a leader's mistake, it shouldn't be seen as like infringing on leadership turf or undermining authority. Instead, it's a collaborative effort.
With the understanding that leadership isn't one person leading a team, it is a group of leaders working together up and down the chain of command to lead. Everyone leads. This powerfully reinforces that idea of mutual accountability, shared ownership, where everyone is invested in the collective success, willing to step up rather than waiting for someone else to take responsibility. This kind of active, shared accountability. It's precisely what Lencioni advocates for, moving teams beyond that avoidance of accountability dysfunction.
Okay, beyond just team interactions, we need to consider the broader human factor in decision-making, in behavior generally. Benjamin Franklin, reflecting in his autobiography, he details the great errata of my life, his big mistakes, including relying on promises from people known to be liberal of promises, which he never meant to keep. Ouch! It just speaks to the enduring importance of character, of trust in all human dealings, and the personal cost when that trust is misplaced.
Stephen Covey delves really deeply into this. He contrasts the personality ethic, the focus on image, techniques, quick fixes, with the character ethic, focusing on integrity, humility, foundational principles. He argues that focusing on human influence strategies and tactics, the superficial charm, when your underlying character is fundamentally flawed, marked by duplicity and insincerity, well, it will inevitably lead to distrust. Cynicism, he says quite powerfully, only basic goodness gives life to technique. Without integrity, any attempt at positive influence will ultimately be perceived as manipulative, because people sense the lack of authenticity. This resonates so strongly with the absence of trust at the base of Lencioni's pyramid, doesn't it? If leaders or team members operate from a personality ethic rather than a character ethic, genuine trust is impossible. The whole team dynamic just suffers.
That's such a profound distinction. Character over personality. Covey further defines a habit, says it's the intersection of three things: knowledge, what to do and why; skill, how to do it; and desire, the want to do it. He emphasizes you need all three to make something truly a habit in our lives, whether it's personal discipline or a team norm. If you know you should listen, and you even know how to listen effectively, but you lack the genuine desire to understand the other person, it won't become a habit. Applies to everything: consistent execution, fostering healthy conflict, holding each other accountable.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it highlights that human behavior isn't always rational, not easily predictable. Dan Ariely's experiments, they show we can be predictably irrational. We make systematic errors in judgment that just defy traditional economic assumptions. For example, his experiments show how deeply we're influenced by anchoring that first piece of information we get, or how we consistently overvalue things we own just because we own them, the endowment effect. These aren't random errors. They're predictable deviations from rationality, and they have massive implications for decision-making within organizations. And then there's Nassim Nicholas Taleb, the Black Swan, discusses how winning today makes you more likely to win in the future, creates these dependencies that defy simple probability calculations. He cautions against assuming independence in events. Probabilities are often dependent on history, on what came before. We tend to extrapolate from past success, don't we? Without adequately accounting for the underlying risks, the path dependencies that might make future success less about pure probability and more about, well, accumulated vulnerabilities or just luck. Michael Lewis, in Liar's Poker, gives this raw, often shocking look at Wall Street culture back in the 80s, where individuals were literally trained to exploit the weakness in others. He describes the office of the chairman at Salomon Brothers as divisive, noted for its catty animosities, members going after each other when they became managers. This wasn't just individual bad behavior, it was an ingrained systemic culture of infighting, where traders were asked to be team players, while the game itself was fundamentally zero-sum, win-lose. This profound contradiction loyalty expected in a partnership, but vanishing when the firm was sold, it led to significant internal problems, ultimately undermined the organization's stability. It's a powerful, stark example of how misaligned incentives, a toxic culture built on exploitation, and a lack of shared purpose or trust at the top. It leads to destructive infighting, organizational instability, massive dysfunction.
Okay, finally, let's explore transparency, critical thinking, and that crucial ability to learn from failure, all interconnected human elements in organizational success. Ray Dalio from Bridgewater Associates, he champions radical transparency and algorithmic decision-making, believing that a partnership with a computer alter ego can lead to great collective decision-making. He's talking about feeding data into computers to make better, less biased choices, almost removing human fallibility from the equation. Sounds intense.
It is intense, and what's fascinating here is the idea that it is easy for anyone to access your digital data to learn a tremendous amount about what you're like, and that this can be set into computers to predict behavior, inform decision-making. While the concept of a computer alter ego tracking your performance, your behavioral traits, it might sound intrusive, even scary to some. But Bridgewater has used this system for 30 years and produced, by many accounts, remarkable results. Their approach involves logging strengths, weaknesses, tracking decision patterns, even critiquing meeting contributions, all to provide unbiased, data-driven feedback. Ensure the best ideas win, not just the ideas from the most senior person or the loudest voice. It's an extreme application of accountability, you could say, and commitment to results, which is the top of Lencioni's pyramid.
However, the flip side. A lack of transparency can be incredibly destructive. Steve Jobs' handling of his health issues at Apple. The company created a culture of secrecy that apparently poisoned its corporate governance. That's a strong indictment. He notably gave more information off the record to a journalist than he was willing to disclose to his own board, his shareholders. That led to widespread distrust, fundamental questions about corporate integrity, leadership accountability. His brilliance couldn't mask the damage done by that opacity.
Which raises that important question about accountability when things go really wrong, especially when transparency and critical oversight are missing. The smartest guys in the room, the Enron story, details the catastrophic collapse. Auditor Anderson was described as sloppy and weak. Why? Shockingly, that's how Enron had always wanted it. It was this symbiotic relationship of complicity, looking the other way. Even when Lay, the CEO, later complained, if Anderson had done its job properly, we wouldn't be here today, the authors conclude starkly. In truth, even as they angrily pointed fingers, the two deserved each other. It highlights the insidious danger of complicity, the systemic nature of ethical failures, where a lack of critical oversight, a lack of mutual accountability from multiple parties contributes to catastrophe. This goes way beyond Lencioni's avoidance of accountability within just one team. This shows how systemic lack of transparency, lack of ethical courage can bring down entire institutions.
On a more individual level, Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, he reminds us that for most people, the pain of losing money is far greater than the joy of being rich. That fear leads many to avoid risk and ultimately avoid opportunity. But his rich dad believed that failure would only make him stronger and smarter. It's about having the courage to cross the line when others backed out, to proactively turn a financial loss into a win. Through learning, adaptation, that ties directly into critical thinking, doesn't it? And resilience.
Absolutely. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, critical thinking is essential, especially in today's world of information overload, as our listener profile notes. It's about questioning assumptions, even if it's unnerving at first to critique the boss, as discussed in Blue Ocean Leadership. That source talks about employees being tasked with providing specific empirical examples of how leaders are or aren't making the transition to new profiles. This isn't vague feedback. It's grounded in observable behavior. You did X, and the impact was Y. It's about fostering an environment where feedback is specific, constructive, and leads to a clear plan of action, enabling continuous learning, continuous growth from both successes and failures. This continuous learning, coupled with transparency, a willingness to critically examine both personal and organizational missteps. That's how you build a resilient, high-performing organization, one that can truly overcome any dysfunction.
Wow, what a journey we've been on. We started with the idea of a deep dive into team dysfunctions using Lencioni as a guide. And while we've absolutely seen how his insights, absence of trust leading to fear of conflict, lack of commitment, avoidance of accountability, inattention to results, how crucial they are, we've also seen how these are interwoven with broader, really profound themes. Strategic foresight, adaptable leadership, the complex human element within organizations. From the foundational purpose of an enterprise, right down to the nuances of internal culture, external partnerships, the health, the performance of any group, it depends on a multitude of interconnected factors.
Indeed. We've seen how clear goals, real accountability, whether through stewardship delegation or those simple one-minute praisings, how they drive performance. We've explored the necessity of strong strategy, backed by those 7 powers like branding, process power, the imperative to innovate, cross chasms, understand visionaries and pragmatists, and crucially, we've highlighted the profound impact of human behavior. From the power of character, empathy, and leadership to the dangers of secrecy, misaligned incentives, like we saw in the financial markets, the thread running through it all. Organizational health, much like Lencioni's pyramid implies, rests on this delicate balance. Human dynamics, deliberate strategy, disciplined execution, they all have to work together.
So, what does this all mean for you listening in? It means understanding organizational effectiveness isn't about finding one simple model, one magic bullet. It's about developing a holistic, adaptable view, a capacity to synthesize diverse information, respond thoughtfully. It's about remembering that the pursuit of great performance, it's a continuous journey, requires constant learning, self-awareness, the courage to engage with both the strategic and the human challenges that inevitably pop up. It's about recognizing that the inattention to results Lencioni puts at the top is often just the symptom of deeper, earlier dysfunctions further down the pyramid.
Which brings us to an important question for you to consider. In your own work, your own team, reflecting on Lencioni's model and all the insights we've discussed today, which of these elements may be building a deeper foundation of trust, fostering healthier conflict, ensuring true commitment, strengthening accountability, sharpening your strategic focus, which presents the most significant, yet perhaps the most rewarding opportunity for transformation right now? And maybe more importantly, what is one small, concrete step you can take this week to begin addressing it? Turning these powerful insights into immediate, tangible action, something to think about.